This is how you can quickly and loosely sketch any building, like this. The first thing to talk about is materials. Let's start with a sketchbook. This one is purely preference, but for me, I like to use watercolor paper. This is mostly because I like the thickness and texture of the paper. I also find that it holds ink very well. Next, I like to use a highlight pen. For me, I find that a white paint pen works perfectly for this. Next, I'll talk about an ink wash. This is just diluted ink in a watercolor brush pen, and I'll use this to add shading and texture. Next is the pen and ink. This honestly comes down to preference. For me, I like to use a Sailor Feed Mannin fountain pen. I also like to pair this with Noodler's black ink since it's waterproof. Next is a pencil, and honestly, any pencil will work just fine. The first step to having a good sketch is finding a good reference. I like to use royalty-free websites like Pinterest. You should make sure when finding a reference that the building is interesting and catches your eye. For me, it was this building. Once you get your good reference picked out, it's time to break it down and understand your reference. What I mean by this is to look for the biggest shapes of the reference, like the squares that make up the building. Once you have a clear picture in your head of these shapes, you can jot them down with a pencil. Next, you're going to break down your reference even further into smaller shapes and those little details that make up the building. Now, again with the pencil, sketch in those smaller details. Once you're done that, it's time for step 3, pen and ink. We're using this to finalize all your lines and add in all the very small details of the piece. Some things to think about while sketching is to make sure you have variety in your line work. This way your sketch doesn't turn out flat and boring. For example, in some darker areas, make some lines bolder, and make sure to keep your lines loose and expressive. Remember while sketching not to get caught up in all the tiny details, and just try to portray the overall theme of the picture. You can also cross-hatch at this step in the darkest areas of the picture to show where the light is coming from. Next, I like to come in with an ink wash. I add this wash in all the darkest areas of the picture and on all the darkest materials that make up the building. In this example, the light is coming from the right side, so I made sure to darken the whole left side of the building. Now for the final step of the process, adding highlights. For this step, I come in with my white paint pen and add highlights in all the reflective surfaces and the brightest areas of the drawing. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully this tutorial helps you guys out. Let me know any questions you have in the comments below, and thank you guys for watching.